people who don't have access to financial services cannot live the kind of normal life that most of us can, because it's so essential nowadays to have a means of making payment, to have access to other services, credit, insurance, savings, and so on. Without that, you are excluded from an important part of ordinary life. The first need is to create a wide public awareness of it, to put it, to create, as I said during a meeting, to create noise about the subject. That means having studies, of course, but having hearings, having discussions, having debates. Out of that, in the normal way, some more concrete proposals. We have already some concrete proposals, but others will emerge. So, but the first step is to highlight an issue that people know about, but perhaps is not to the forefront in their minds. Keep the issue on the agenda. Keep people talking about it is the first requirement. It's not going to solve problems, but if people aren't talking about it, nothing's going to happen. So that's the first issue. Highlight. There are some studies that are going to be published. The people who publish them, like BEUC, will of course highlight them themselves, but it's important that other people act as a relay, can spread it around from that point of view. Look at different things that are happening that can be a peg, one might say, on which to hang the issue. So these are the kind of things that are needed at European level. Before anything is done, really, to look also at the legislation that is there. There is legislation on consumer credit, to highlight what more needs to be done, to look at the recommendations, which in many respects are fine, they're fine sentiments in them about this and that, but to highlight the fact that they're remaining on the level of fine sentiments and not something that's actually happening. Of course, you have to look at the content of the recommendations themselves as well, but to try to improve that. But if we even had full implementation of what are agreed recommendations, the situation would be a lot better than it is at present. But we're a long way from that, particularly in some member states. It can be tricky to regulate, but if you start on a number of principles, the principle of choice, and the principle of transparency, of cost, if you look at these, then it becomes not necessarily easier to regulate, but easier to see how best to regulate. We've done it in other areas. We've, in many areas now, for all the utility services, even though they may be provided by private companies now, there is a so-called universal service provision. There's an obligation to provide services to everybody. A water company or electricity, or water industry, electricity industry, telecoms industry can't say, well, we're not going to provide service. Collectively or individually, they've got to find an answer. This can be done in financial services too.